podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon, co-author with Peter Vale of the digital book on Practice as a Way of Being. Find it at mylibrary.world. And now to our show. Well, folks, this is a new year, and it's a new phase of Practice Podcast episodes for me. And I'm delighted to start off with someone who I had in a podcast a year or so ago, and someone brand new who I'm just meeting. I'm talking about Pam Potanka and John Kelly. Pam was my student, 1912, I think, something like that, Pam. So it was back in the last century, well, maybe not, but you're not that old, but I am. And Pam and John had worked together in another corporation and became friends and colleagues, and now they are about to merge two streams of their life practices and the strengths that they've built up in various roles into a new company. And I think what a great time to meet them again and wish them well. And then let's learn a lot about what it takes for two people to boldly go where, yes, others have gone. Arise Results is preliminary name of the business. And it's, as I understand, it's focused on putting the best possible people in places where they need the best possible people in a recruiting and development kind of way. And boy, do we need that, particularly the new generations that are finding it quite challenging to settle in like you did, Pam, a couple of times in your career, and you did, John. So Pam, let's start with you.
Sure.
I asked John this question when we had a phone call to get acquainted yesterday. I said, John, setting aside all the roles that you've had in companies, what would you say is your fundamental practice, your fundamental way of being? And without a hesitation, what did you say, John?
Coaching.
Coaching, right there, boom. And then elaborated in terms of coaching sports, but also in his leadership style, a coaching style. Pam.
Yes.
What's your fundamental way of being? Your
enabling growth.
Huh?
Enabling growth.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
Enabling. That's the key word too. Meaning that when you're in a position to notice how people are doing at a particular level of measured performance as well as supposed performance, you see growth potential.
Mm-hmm.
Some other people see they're at the top of their, they're not going to get any better. We've basically got to find someone who can fill that role with more of themselves, or however they want to put it.
Right.
So over the years, give me an example of when you developed people by enabling growth.
I'll give you two examples, Doc. So John and I have very similar backgrounds when it comes to sales management and hiring teams. I also do have a recruiting background. And what I really enjoy is when you see somebody and you see their potential, and maybe they don't really know how to take it to the next level. So part of that, what John talks about coaching, is really tapping into their abilities. And it fulfills me to see somebody succeed. There are some managers that maybe they get a little intimidated because they don't want to see somebody surpass them.
Yeah.
For me, at least, I enjoy seeing somebody go to the next level. So I have my previous team, I had recruited people, trained them, coached them, worked through, and to see them grow is the most fulfilling thing that I could describe.
What does growth look like to you when it's right in front of you?
Growth to me looks like somebody that doesn't think they can do but then you push them a little further. And the excitement that you get and they get to realize, yeah, you took a risk. Yeah, it was scary, but you did it, you know?
You
So
did it.
it's great. It's a great feeling.
John, it sounds to me in some ways your passion for coaching all these years of your career, and you've had a little longer career than Pam. Uh, you have a similar value, don't you, for seeing people get better at whatever you're helping them do?
Without question. And it's for me, it builds right into what Pam, does. We have to enable someone, but in a lot of cases, it's not just about enabling them to get to that next level that maybe they aspire to. It's first enabling them to understand what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and then how do you use your toolkit the best way to get to where you want to be. So not just to help yourself make money, but help yourself to help your teammates to be the best possible person you can be. And then, you start to use, look, you can do it through any method, whether it's, years ago, I started my career at Xerox, and they were, based in problem solving and quality, right? So
Yeah.
everything I do is about making sure that you could follow it, with SARS method as well, right? But it ultimately everything breaks down to, what's your situation, what's your actions going to be, and then what are the desired results. And within that, there's a lot of different things where you can apply, making sure that you don't just have one road, right? Because there's always, think of Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever. There's always a different direction to get to where you want to be, and sometimes you have to make sure you consider those things. So for me, it's about coaching people to be able to do that, because I think once people understand, look, you can't see me except for from the chest up, right? But I'm a short guy, so it's knowing your limitations. So I will not be Patrick Ewing, the center for the Knicks. I'm better off being a shortstop or somewhere where I could get close to the ground, because I'm not going to block a 7-foot guy coming in. But these are things you have to realize. What are the strengths I have, and not be upset with what you've been given by the grace of God. It's taking that and making the best of it. And I think that's, once people see that, and it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter what your vocation is, it's understanding how does that work for me in whatever area I'd like to be successful, personal, professional, whatever that may be.
That's all to the good for sure. And one of the words that I heard, John, and I'll take it back to Pam because it's in the preliminary name of your company, is results. Now, Pam, you're a management major. You were taught by probably the world's best management professor.
Perhaps. Yes,
a humble guy.
I would agree.
But, in a business school, almost every course you take rolls into the term results. What are your accounting results? What are your marketing results, and so forth? And all the years you've been in business, you've been measured by the results of you and your teams. So don't you want to run away from that word now that it's been so much involved into your life all these years, and try a different, like paint, cute dogs like your sister?
Right. Yes, exactly. Doc, I know we talked about this on our last podcast, but one of the things that really drove me into this, business and seeing results and teamwork is what you did when we were in school. We got teams together. You took people from all different backgrounds and industries, put them together, and that diversity and that dynamic and figuring out how to get results from the best of all these different components is wildly, it creates success. So for me, I am driven to see results. It's just positive, and it's not just a selfish thing where it just benefits you as the manager or the recruiter or the trainer. Just to see people grow and develop as I'm sure you understand, I mean, I would imagine you being a professor, seeing people, kind of grow
Yeah,
based on, what you've taught them. It's kind of the same joy that I get out of what I do.
yeah, I get it. I was never liked the old-fashioned ways of grading student work or
Right.
student results. So I created basically a point system,
Mhm.
and I said, okay, here every week is a module. Here's the total number of points you can earn in this module. Here are basically 30 different ways you can earn those points.
Mhm.
And so they could work across a spectrum, either from their writing or for their team performance in the games that we played, or however. But the point was, if, you build a record, and that, of course, that was a metaphor for what you both have known for years in your corporate lives. I want to ask a bit more about John, the results that you're hoping to achieve in your new firm in the next few months because it's so new. What sort of outcomes will really make you guys feel good?
So we've got three particular areas where we'd like to be um, able to assist because we believe in researching. Because we did some research, over,
Oh, I'm
hey,
sure.
we want to work together. We like each other. We trust each other. Um, I think honesty and being able to take feedback from each other is extremely important. So all that's there. So we took a look at what's your background, what are the things you can bring to the table. I did the same. We both have recruited and managed many people, but Pam's actually been a corporate recruiter. So we said, all right, that's a pretty difficult business because there's a lot of people doing it,
A lot of people.
right? But when you start to marry, and this is what we did, we looked into, we contacted because we both have been contacted by a number of recruiters once we left PerkinElmer. So when you start to look at people's follow up, what do they offer? Are they just trying to place you somewhere rather than help you along the way to say, all right, look, maybe this particular opportunity is not the best for you, but we have another one we can get you ready for. But we do offer those services, right? So
There's
outplay,
growth right there. Yeah.
right. So outplacement services. And I look, when I left PerkinElmer, was offered a package, so they gave us outplacement services. So I won't mention the firm, but I was able to work with them, and I said I can do this better. I can really do this better and offer. It's a little different when you go to school for IPC and coaching, right? And there's a long-winded answer to get to where what you want, but there's a lot of people who are certified coaches, whether they're life coaches, but then they've maybe never managed people, and
Yeah.
they've never taught them how to get results. Because think about it, when you're an individual performer, it's about getting results. But when you're a leader, it's about getting results through people, and it's
Through
how
people.
you work with them. What is your style? What are those
Right.
things? So to get back to our business, so we said, if we can put together something that's unique in that there's a lot of people, I think I mentioned this to you yesterday, there's a lot of people who kind of mask as recruiters, but they're really just resume writers.
Yeah.
And we're not interested in that. I mean, we'll offer that, but our package is going to be about placing you in the right position and then offering you those services you need. Are you just displaced? Do you just want recruitment services? And these are by Pam and I meeting and vetting, clients first. So that's what we looked at. And there's other things that we can add to the business as we go. But right now it's really about helping those people who are searching for the right opportunity, or through that say, hey, talk to me about what you've done in terms of career movement, career advancement. And then we can start to offer those types of services too. And I feel really, really comfortable with that. I am certified in those types of, areas, whether it's situational leadership or, emotional intelligence, which I think are extremely important because
Yeah.
everybody gets, think about, I hate to bring sports in because Pam loves it when I bring sports into the equation, but
Right.
there are so many great coaches, but some have boisterous styles. Some are, think about the Todd Bowles with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a much less boisterous style, quiet leader though. And maybe he didn't fit with the Jets, but he fits with Tampa Bay and he's been to the playoffs every year because his style fits that particular situation. And so it's about finding the right situation and helping people to do that because we've had to do it too. I mean, even though, for me personally, I've only been with 2 companies over the last, 22 years or so. A lot of, we were talking about this yesterday, Doc, a lot of people move from place to place. It's also about teaching people to have a little bit of loyalty, set those roots, because that's when your career really takes off. And if you choose to not do that and you want to just jump, well then we'll work with you and we'll continue to offer you services. But the want for me would be when we place someone, you stay with them. If you need us in 5 years or so, that's great. But we want to be able to help you with everything you need right out of the gate. So it's really those 3 things, right? Individual development, individual career development, outplacement services, and the recruiting services. Pam, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I hear a focus on the person who's looking to fit into a new organization. Pam, what about the other side of that coin, where your client is a company?
Yes.
And they say, we need this, that. And so you're playing both sides of that paradigm.
Correct.
How do you see yourself developing the something in companies that's different than what they can do with their own internal HR folk, or one of the consultants that John mentioned, who's basically gets paid by the person they bring in.
So I do have quite a bit of experience with this, Doc, actually. So when I have been working with companies in the past as a recruiter in a former life, I did realize that there is a disconnect. I would contact these companies and say, well, you do have HR, but the HR is also focused on a bunch of different areas, dealing with internal issues. Their primary focus is not always necessarily just filling a position. So they have their hands in a bunch of different buckets, trying to get everything accomplished.
Yeah.
So sometimes if there's an urgent need, they need to backfill a position immediately. HR is spread thin. They're doing way too many things. So that's why companies tend to go out to recruiting businesses. And what I have experienced in my, years of, being in this industry is that a lot of these companies, they'll just take a job requisition with a couple bullet points. They'll try to fill it, but then they'll pass off that to another person to do the recruiting. So it ends up being this game of kind of telephone, and some things get lost in translation.
Yeah.
So what John and I are bringing to the table is that we meet with clients and those businesses, and it's in our best interest to fully understand their needs and ask those probing questions, figure out their pain points, figure out the time frame. And then we're not outsourcing this information to another group. John and I are going to take exactly what they want, internalize it, make sure we have exact information, reiterate it back to the client to make sure that we fully are on the same page. And then we will individually go and find those people, respecting their time frame and presenting only a very small candidate pool. What I've experienced with talking to people, because again, like John mentioned, we have done our research. Some companies will just give you 50 random people that fit the criteria because of keywords on their resume.
Yeah.
But that's not really the point of our service. Our service is to give you, let's just say, the top 2 or 3 people. That's our job, So that's kind of where we differentiate ourselves, is because 100% one-on-one personalized service.
It's to me, it sounds like you both will be doing a lot of work in both in your strong areas and as well as areas where you're kind of cross training each other. But what you're promising both the individual or the company is a hell of a lot of attention.
Yes.
And I will tell you from my experience being a consumer, uh, attention to my needs can't be faked.
Hmm.
That phone message that says, "We care a lot about your business," says the robot. I
Right.
think so. What you're moving into is an environment where most people, both the individual or the company, relish attention because it's so hard to get it. So much is going to be turned into AI and to other sort of procedural stuff that
Hmm.
that feeling that, hey, Pam and John are on my team, or Pam and John are on our team, and they're looking after the best interest of the business because the hire now has never been more strategic. I don't care what position you're filling,
Hmm.
because they're carving things down and they're putting people in roles that now have to grow with the changes in AI. They can't just have someone whose resume looks like they've done it before. They need someone like you two who look at, yes, they've done that before, but we see the potential for growth.
Hmm.
We see that they're going to be able to grow, they're going to be able to adapt very quickly to whatever John mentioned tools earlier, whatever tools you need them to learn to do the business. But as persons, you're going to have some tools as well. John, I want to ask you more about tools. Um, eh, we're talking about the means by which people get things done, get results. They use very tried tools, but there are some new tools out there, I expect too, and you guys will be discovering them along the way.
So there's many tools to do everything that we want to do, whether you're talking about CRMs, right? So we're very versed in Salesforce, SalesLoft, HubSpot. Something you brought up is extremely important and something Pam and I are going to do some research on because it affects us, is AI for HR and recruitment. And
Yeah.
I would argue, and I think it's just to go back to what you guys were talking about for a second there, that's what sets a group like us apart, because you can have someone's resume. Think about SaaS sales are a big, it's a big industry right now. So many software companies looking for people, and SaaS sales, right? So software as a service is really like selling a service contract, like what we had at PerkinElmer, or we had compliance type software. So I bring that up to say people have to understand how to also market their toolbox, and we bring up AI because if you go to LinkedIn and you look at a particular job, somebody applies for it, and then they go through a cycle, and then it's reposted again. Why was that reposted?
Yeah.
Well, if they're using an AI service, right, Doc, that means maybe their resume wasn't. This is where we can help them. Maybe the resume wasn't particularly, written particularly right. But you look at somebody's resume, and then you're going down it, and you say, all right, wait a second, we're vetting these people, because the customer for us is going to be on two ends of the spectrum. The customer will be the corporations that we're looking to help find the
Right.
talent, but then also those individuals. So to Pam's point, which I think is extremely astute, is we're going to narrow it down to the top candidates, not just, hey, here's 10 people, talk to them. I mean, honestly, anybody can do that, right?
Right.
It's let's vet, and that's where Pam continues to tell me, hey, John, get ready for this. The recruiting part of this is going to be it's going to be a big time constraint for us, but not really, because when you talk about tools, you also have to understand how to use those tools. Like, if you are doing that, and that's why we're going to do all of this without those types of tools. And we're going to teach people that we're working with how to make sure that in alignment with the tool, you never use the the human touch of it, because again,
That's the key.
if something's if something's on the written page and it says SaaS sales, but your position title wasn't SaaS sales, it may not pick that up. So if we're talking to somebody, hey, so you've got SaaS listed here. This position really calls for an intuitive IT person. Talk to me about that, and just leave it open ended. And then based upon their response, whether they really have some talent there or not. Or somebody says, hey, I'm glad you asked about tools, because it's important. I mean, if somebody hasn't used HubSpot, but it's on their resume, and then you ask them, hey, have you ever set up a cadence, or have you ever deployed a marketing campaign? Have you ever
where you can really
right? Have you ever used SEO, right? Search engine marketing. Or that's when people, I don't know what that is. So you can't just crowd somebody's resume. And that's where you can tell people, hey, these are the positions that we think you're most qualified for, which we can help you get. And then we can help you then get that education. We're not going to offer, it's only two of us right now. We're hoping to expand
no,
it,
but
it's what you can do. But the tool piece,
providing
is a
direction.
great question. No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you can help the individual. You can direct them to where they can develop actual depth in something before they put it on a resume. Pam, over the years, we've heard resume. We've had resume workshops at the university, and
Yeah.
I know that's an important document. But I'm wondering, with the fact that someone can say to Chat CPT, write me a resume that uses these 5 things that I want to show people.
Right.
And then if you want to throw in a few other things, that's okay too. So in other words, it could be not a fake resume, but a resume that they really didn't put
A little
thought
embellished.
and effort and heart into.
Right.
How are you going to deal with, that's a crucial step
Yes.
in finding your top 3.
It
And as
is.
John said, then you've got to really ask, okay, you say you do this, cite me where you've done it. You got to do that pre-screening.
Right, exactly. And that's where we come in. And again, I've done this before, and a resume is fine. It's a good starting point, but when you really interact with people and ask them questions and
Yes.
get those references and really have them explain their work history, because everybody is also, even if they are not using an AI tool to create their resume, everybody tries to keep everything very, looking great. The font has to be a certain size, the margins.
Oh yeah, watch those margins.
It's just very surfacey for me. A resume is a good starting point.
It's just a screening device, but it is also
Correct.
the first thing that a lot of you and or your company clients are going to look at.
Right. And it really comes down to that human element where we're not just, looking at a resume and saying yes or no. It's my plan really here is to, source candidates, because it goes both ways. And I talked about earlier how we want to benefit the companies that we're going to be recruiting for, but also it goes both ways. Because what I want satisfied clients as far as a business goes, to have that good relationship, but I also want to source the best candidates. And to John's point, we do not want a bunch of turnover. We want to build these individuals, teach them how to interview well, build their skill set, help them with their resumes, and teach them how to speak during the interview to really elaborate on their actual experiences and not just be a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Because we want to see growth on both ends. We're just kind of the glue trying to connect.
I think that's a very interesting model. John, I think, mentioned earlier in our conversation, getting people in the right places in companies. Because you guys have lived with that. You've seen people who have plenty of talent, but it doesn't really work in a particular team that they've been put in, and they're just like a flat tire for the team. No person that you want to send into a company wants to go there to become a flat tire. So you've got the delicate process of really knowing as well as possible who this candidate is, but at the same time, if they say, well, I think I want to have another IT position, and you getting them to know you and saying, maybe you should move into operations like John has been, like I think you get, the more you know how the company actually makes money, the more likely you are to use your IT background, but also grow in a new area. Those kind of conversations. Does that sound, John, like something you would see doing for candidates that help get them in the right zone of the business so that they can grow in it?
Yes, you hit the nail on the head with your comments, and it kind of cycles back to the tool conversation. So we may have a candidate who we vet who's not in line for a particular job, but it'll be how we handle that candidate in terms of, but you're going to have some people. It's just truth of the matter is they may not want to work with us. We may not want to work with them for whatever that reason, right? And for us, it's generally only going to be if someone misrepresents themselves, because we'll work with.
Because that's your reputation.
Yeah, we will work with anybody who really wants to better themselves. Doesn't matter, what that personality type is. We'll work through that. But misrepresentation can only just hurt your business, and frankly hurts them, because you tell somebody you're certified in Kaizen problem solving, and you okay, we hire you for this, and you can talk through it because you look it up on the internet. Well, once you start to go into the model, and then you've got to really start to break apart these problems.
Perform. Yeah.
You don't know how to do that and project manage. So to go back to your tools, that tool thing, it's first and foremost making sure we're treating every person with respect and understanding what they bring to the table, and having the wherewithal to let someone know, hey, look, this opportunity may not be the one for you.
Right.
But we will keep there, because we'll use our own CRM. Mm-hmm. Right now we're using spreadsheets, in a pretty cool way. But once we start to grow and have that, we'll know, hey, we have these 6 candidates who we're looking for, a sales director position within manufacturing, and they've got this particular aptitude. And we'll be able to cycle back to a candidate and say, hey, let's keep in touch. And they may not at that time want any of the other services we offer, but I think being able to keep things open-ended, but I think most important, being respectfully direct about whether a particular opportunity is right for them. And that's going to really be on us with the vetting process. And the vetting process is not only for a position, the vetting process is for somebody who wants development individually for their career. And being a leader is, you've taught it forever. Being a leader is not just saying I want to be the manager. It doesn't make you a manager. It's all of those things, and generally someone who has been a really good leader in a particular area has been an individual performer within that particular arena, whether it's sales or operations, or they've learned it so that they could lead it. Right. So it's all of those things to get together, but just making sure that we're, again, being respectfully direct with someone about what they may need for a particular position.
I'm reminded, Pam, of well, I've been watching a lot of Turner Classic movies since I've had to get off my political channels, given the results of the election. I've got to hide in the past for a while, and so I've gotten into the Turner, and then what happens in addition is they have these segments where they talk about agents, mm-hmm. and how the agent role is similar to what I'm hearing here. Yes, in a way they represent the studio's interests to mm-hmm. find the right actor for a particular cast. At the same time, they have to really encourage the development of these actors or musicians or whomever their agent, because yeah. if the more that person gets paid, eventually the better off they'll be. And then there are other kinds of recognition and pay that you get just for being the middle person, the agent of that successful show, if you will, on the company side, and the successful career on the individual side. Is that does that make any sense to what you see yourself doing in the sense of being not
It does.
just saying, okay, I got you hired by, but
Yeah.
hey, come back, I'll check in on you. I may find another opportunity down the road. So there's a different relationship, isn't there, with an agent?
Yeah, there is. And so I'm glad you brought that up. You're hitting that right on the head. So the purpose of us is, and John and I, with the experience that we've had as being recruiters, training managers, it costs the company and the manager a lot of time and money
Yeah.
to get the best person in that spot. Takes a lot of time to get them up and running. And to have constant turnover is not only exhausting for the employee if they're jumping to a new job every 6 months, but also to the business. It's and you want to surround yourself with success. So we want our business clients to be successful. We want the people that we place at those companies to be successful, because it's also, I mean, think about it. It's kind of a time suck for us as well if we keep just replacing these people. And it's just, we want stability, we want success, we want to surround ourselves with success. And if we have people, and to John's point earlier, there have been people that have interviewed with me, and when we really get into into the weeds with them and understand what their strengths are, their weaknesses, what they actually need. Maybe the job they applied for is not the best fit for them.
Not the best.
We can find, okay, based on your strengths, this is another opportunity for you. So we're essentially job matchmaking. We don't just plot people in positions and then say bye. I mean, in my experience as a manager and a recruiter, there's also follow-up. I always used to follow up with my new hires, my direct placements, just to see, because sometimes too, when somebody's new to a company and you've been the recruiter or the hiring manager, and you like, here, all right, this is your new company. Sometimes they're used to you. They're comfortable talking to you. And I would always follow up with them to make sure, how was your first day? How was your first week? Is there anything you want to talk about? So the relationship doesn't end upon placing you.
No, in fact, that could just set your business apart. It's sort of like who do we call? Ghostbusters. That in the companies got a growth prospect or going to add staff, or they're going to make some major changes. Who do we call? Now they could call. They could go to the list. There's probably 100 such firms that are out there, but most of them are big, and most of them will send in the person to do the work would be the least expensive person they can send. Like the big consulting firms, they'd get a big contract and then they'd send in rookies. You guys are not rookies. As I'm moving toward the end of this recording time, I want to tell the folks that John Kelly and Pam Potanka are not rookies at anything. They've really, in some ways, more than surpassed what they could accomplish when they were working for a company. Now they are a company. And so if I were saying, all right, who am I going to call? I'm going to call seasoned, smart folk like you two who understand the language even. I mean, if you're siding largely with manufacturing, like your years at PerkinElmer, you understand it. If they speak in three letters to explain something, you get it. And so that knowledge of the workplace and the trends and all the stuff that you have lived through is part of your creds. And then on the other side, since you have been hiring, what is the misery of hiring someone for a position to which they're not really well wed, and it's going to become a real bad thing for both of them. So I like that notion of matching, because it's matching and then it's more. Maybe that's I'm not giving you a logo, but matching and more, because the more part like John can be doing some really good coaching, both to the company managers, the hiring managers, about how to bring that person and others usually bring them in a better way. So there's a coaching opportunity there. And over to your side, growth and development, you've got this group of folks that you're keeping track of, even if they're placed. You know, it's perfectly fine these days to hear from their matchmaker, hey, we don't want you to leave XYZ company, but we do, you have asked us to keep you informed. Because there's all kinds of ways they can keep themselves informed. But if they're really doing their job, they can't spend hours a week looking at breaking. But you know that this particular person has a real window of potential to grow. Maybe they're at ESPN right now, which is a dream job for some people, but then they're there and they're going, you know, there's a lot of people here, and Disney's kind of always changing the rules on us and everything. So they go back to Pam and they say, hey, Pam, you know, what's out there? And you're out there is much better than Indeed or any of these big mass search engines. Am I right, or am I overselling what you guys can do?
No, you're
No,
spot
you're
on,
right.
Doc. That's kind of what our game plan is. We really want to be just very personal and follow up. We're not just looking for quick turnover to make a buck. We want the full life cycle of a business and a person's career and development. That's really what we're looking for, is just surrounding ourselves with success from all ends.
Yep.
That's what our game plan is here.
And then just figure out how to make money doing that, and you'll
This is true.
be happy as clams. John, last thoughts from you on what? Well, I'm going to make it a question. Of all the people in the world that you could throw in with to do a new business, why Pam Potanka?
Because I've seen Pam in the good, the bad, the ugly, right? What we went through at PerkinElmer, while we loved PerkinElmer, and there's no bad feelings. You know, when you get bought by a venture capital group, these things happen, right?
Yeah.
Changes happen. But to watch her career, I had a good friend, I think I told you this yesterday, good friend who I became his manager for a short period of time. Pam worked for him, and then when he decided to leave, and it was his decision, Pam worked directly with me, and I was almost a week. It was about, you know, now it's going on 2 years, but we had worked together for the 5 years I was at PerkinElmer. But once I got to work with her directly, and it wasn't, and when you work with me, whether you're a direct report, you work with me. You're not working for me. You know, it's not like that. I realized very quickly what Pam brought to the table and really what wasn't being brought out. And I saw the level of trust we were able to establish very quickly. And to me, that was the capper, because you have to trust each other. You have to be able to rely on each other. You have to be able to, you brought up some really good points, before about, coaching, but I think something that's really important is being able to let people in to your failures as well, because if you really are a student, a good learner, you know where you've made your mistakes and you're not going to make those again. And those are the things I saw in Pam very quick. And then the last thing, so it's that trust aspect, how she handles adversity, but then how she was with her team and how her team responded to her. So all day long, I'm lucky. I work for Pam. All day long, I'm lucky to be with Pam Potanka. So very, very happy in the decision I've made to work with Pam.
And Pam,
Yes.
all the way, and I can tell now there are a lot of ways that you've valued John and are really happy to throw in with him. I use those words.
Yeah.
What stands out?
So I would say the reason that John and I work together so well and why I trust him to be part of this business and work together is because when I was working with John, he really did push me. Which I appreciate. He put me in situations that I necessarily would not have been in before. And the only way that you can actually learn is to be put in those places you have not been in. And it's not like he left me there on an island. He supported me, he coached me and guided me. And the amount of growth that I had in those years that I worked with him, we both have different strengths and we both feed off each other. We take feedback extremely well and we both learn from each other. So that is why I am so happy to be partnered up with this guy right now, because we do have a great dynamic. Again, like John mentioned many times, it's about trust, but it's really just learning from each other based on our backgrounds and taking that feedback and forcing each other into new positions where we can grow. It's all about growth, Doc. You know that.
Well, I now pronounce you a company.
Thank you, Doc.
And I think you will be. And I look forward to following up with you guys in a few months and seeing how things are going. Maybe another podcast episode, but if not, be sure to keep me in the loop, because I always care about you, Pam, because I've known you a long while. And John, now I care about you. So congratulations.
Thank you, Doc. We appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Practice Podcast, where we discuss practice with a capital P. If you'd like to hear more, listen in on Spotify, Automatic, and Apple Podcasts, or go to inactionresearch.com/podcast-page. And if you'd like to learn more about social inaction and the nature of practice, head over to inactionresearch.com for more information. Thank you for supporting this show. We look forward to hearing from you soon.